Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Superficial Spirit. I want to say a big hello to our billions and billions of fans around the world. It's so nice to be hosting a number one podcast globally and intergalactically around the universe. So, thank you so much for tuning in again. I am here with my two ascended fans. First, she's not a cult leader, but she certainly has a large gay following. It's Jess.
Oh my god, I love that.
How are you, Jess?
I'm good. So happy to be here with you guys.
Welcome back. And he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he sure has a lot of opinions about ghosting. It's Derek.
These are
Go
amazing.
Go ahead and talk crap. I don't play with crap. I flush it.
Oh my god. Wow, bravo.
Things are evolving
Hello.
quickly here on the introduction front.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't not believe in ghosts, for the record.
Derek, please.
I just don't believe in the ghosts that most people say they believe in or can talk to. But I don't not believe there could be ghosts.
That's kind of like what you said about the aliens. It's like it's not that I don't believe there are aliens. I just don't believe the people who are saying that they held them with their arms.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you watched it yet? From the last episode, Derek. Have you
No, I
watched
haven't watched
Moment of
it.
Contact?
I haven't watched it. I won't watch it. We should move on, or people will get bored.
Okay.
There's still hope, people. There's still hope. So this weekend was my birthday, and I wish you all were here. Last year, my birthday fucking was so depressing because Evan was in the hospital. I had just gotten into a fight with all of my fucking friends, and I didn't want to do anything. And my mom and Evan was like, just like do something, like go have a dinner, go have a meal, go do something. And so, like, very last minute, I texted a bunch of people and I was like, hey, let's go have a brunch. I did it for Saturday or Sunday morning. A bunch of people confirmed. There was like maybe 8 to 10 people. Wake up that morning, not feeling it at all, super fucking in a bad mood, was just like not into my life at the moment. I was just depressed and whatever. On my way to the restaurant, people start texting me saying that they can't make it, but I get to the restaurant. I sit at this big fucking table. Only 2 people showed up. One of them was still high on MDMA from the night before, and the other one was just a normal person. But it was so depressing because in Vancouver, I used to have all like massive birthday parties. And in Toronto, like it was the pandemic and all this stuff. So this year I was like, I don't know, like it was kind of like a ripple effect. Like what if I invite people and they don't come again? But it ended up being such a nice night. And I wish that you both were there. Like when I was making my list of people that I wanted to invite, I wish you could have flown across the country to come, but you didn't.
Looked like you had a ton of people. You had a ton of people celebrating with you.
Yeah, I did. It was a nice dinner. I had a lunch. I had a lunch with work people, and I had a dinner. It was great. And the reason why I bring that up is Kim Petras, one of my favorite little pop stars, released a new song recently called If Jesus Was a Rock Star. Okay. It came out on my birthday, and I'm always happy when pop stars release things on my birthday. Katy Perry used to do it all the time. But the song is called If Jesus Was a Rock Star. And this was one of those moments when I'm like, okay, pop culture, spirituality. I'm listening to the song. It's super catchy. I did talk to somebody on Instagram who said they didn't like it. But the whole song is basically about if Jesus was more like a rock star, if he was partying a lot, if he was jumping off the stage, if he was fucking supermodels and pop stars, then maybe I'd want to be like him. And so I'm listening to it in the shower and I'm like, I don't think Kim Petras was writing it as like a spiritual message to her fans. Like, maybe we need to think about why we reject the concept of Jesus, or what would it mean if it was more accessible. But the way I interpreted this was a lot of people on the planet glamorize excessive partying, like morally corrupt rock stars, like the fame, the fortune, but Jesus as like a spiritual or religious figure, people are like repulsed by. So I liked the combination of them. And she's a trans pop star, so I thought it was super clever. But I did actually as a superficial spirit podcaster, and like the whole theme of my life being external versus internal versus external, and like looking for the divine in pop culture, I thought it was a really cute song to like plant the seed of maybe if we expanded what we think about spirituality or religion or what it means to have a relationship with God, then it might be more accessible. Because if you can present the idea of spirituality in a way that isn't alienating and doesn't make people think of like religion or being ostracized or being left out or being, you know, attacked for being different, then potentially people could have a more positive experience. I know this is a lot from like a Kim Petras song, but this is what I took from it. I'm like, this is what I believe could be the bridge between people not being spiritual and people potentially opening up to the idea of being spiritual through pop culture, is opening their mind to what it means to have a relationship with God. Does that make any sense to either of you?
I'm like feeling cringy, like you're talking about Christian rock and a lot of I don't know, I'm confused. Does this person like believe in Jesus, or were they just trying to be like,
no,
yeah,
well,
like ironic?
My impression is, I mean, I don't know what Kim Petras is. She's not a Christian rock star, that's for sure. I think it was more like, you remember that song, What If God Was One of Us?
Yeah.
What if God was one of us? I don't think it's necessarily about Jesus or Christianity, but Jesus is a symbol that everybody can agree represents God or like religion. And so she's using it as a tongue-in-cheek way to say, maybe if Jesus was more like me, I would be into him and I would be open to believing it and I would be open to following it. Not necessarily Christianity as a religion, but like spirituality.
I just don't get that as a like metaphor or a framing device, because it's like saying if something I don't like was like something I do like, then I would like that thing. That's vacuous. Like what? If Hitler
people are
liked
already
video
doing that.
Well, if Hitler liked video games, then I would like Hitler. Do you know what I mean? Like what does that mean? Like
The way I interpreted it was not if Jesus was doing the things I liked. It was like if the idea of God and the idea of spirituality was more relatable, potentially more young people would be open to it, specifically queer people. Because when queer people come on my show and I say, are you spiritual? Are you spiritual? Do you consider yourself spiritual? They say, I'm not religious. And I'm like, that's not what I asked you. Because a lot of people equate religion with spirituality, but we've all discussed on this show that spirituality is a personal experience. You can have a relationship with God or a higher power, whatever, fucking Pleiadians, aliens, whatever, that is separate from religion. So when I see references like that in pop culture, I see it as potentially an opportunity for those walls to come down and people's perception to open up. Oh, Kim Petras is talking about Jesus, but she's doing it in like a fun and crazy way. Like, what is my spirituality? Do I believe in God? What does this mean? This is making me feel inspired. And that potentially could be a way to open people up to it. Not Christianity necessarily, just the idea of what spirituality can mean for folks consuming pop culture who aren't maybe thinking about it.
Maybe but like, why do they have to think about it? Yeah.
They don't have to think about it.
People have to be spiritual. I don't know. I'm cringing at this whole thing.
They don't have to be spiritual.
How do I comment on a song I haven't heard?
They do not have to be spiritual. I mean, the whole thing with my spirituality was that it came to me unexpectedly because I felt connected to something that was bigger than me. And I was like, oh, this is divine. This is my life purpose. This is destiny. What does destiny need? What does destiny mean? Maybe it's like God. Like, it's just the thought patterns that take you to a certain set of beliefs. So when it comes up in pop culture, no, you don't have to be spiritual. You don't even need to take this message. What I interpret those moments are like when fucking a pop star wins an award. Nicki Minaj wins the fucking VMA Artist of the Year, and she says, I want to thank God. And then her fans are watching her and they don't identify as religious or they don't identify as spiritual, but then somebody that they look up to is talking about God and talking about spirituality. What kind of effect does that have on them? How do they interpret that?
A bad effect, because then they just start believing in a God that doesn't exist because there is no God.
I mean, I'm looking at the lyrics and I'm not getting any of that. I'm not following you from point A to point B. All she says is, if Jesus was a rock star, living like a party every day, diving off the stage, if he'd give it to a pop star, and then she says a couple other times, I want to get on my, if he made me want to get on my knees, if he looked like Kurt Cobain, I get on my knees. All I'm getting from this is, if a thing I don't like was a thing I do like, and those things that I like are like partying and being slutty, then I'd like that thing. And it doesn't make any sense narratively. Like, what? All she's saying, it's just, it gives me very like, it gives me like Madonna shock value, no substance kind of.
That's so funny you said that, because I was just about to bring up Like a Prayer. Like when Madonna
But even the lyrics of Like a Prayer have more to it than, I like to party, I want to suck dick. If Jesus liked to do those things, then I'd be like Jesus. Well,
yeah, but that's
yeah?
it. That's exactly it. So maybe if Jesus was more like
If
me,
Hitler was
I
a
would be
gay guy
open
who
to
worked out and played
Jesus.
video games, then I'd be like Hitler. Like, okay.
I see your point. I think that I'm curious. I wish I could talk to more Kim Petras fans to see what happens when these people bring up religious figures. Like, yes, it's shock value. Sure. I think it's clever by her saying, you know, if Jesus was a slut like me, maybe I would like him.
Yeah, then we'd
Honey.
both be sluts. But that could be
And
anyone. What's Jesus
religious
got to
and
do with it?
spiritual.
But what has Jesus got to do with
Because
it?
religious, because I think Jesus traditionally is the opposite of the lifestyle she's talking about.
Yeah.
Partying, drinking, drugs, being slutty, sucking dick in the alley. Her last album was called Slut Pop. So by saying, if Jesus was like this, Jesus is the polar opposite. He's the fucking embodiment of light and love and never does anything wrong. Then maybe I would like him. That's why she's saying it, because it's bringing
Yeah,
two
but
opposites
if
together.
Jesus was those things, then Jesus in this hypothetical would no longer be the symbol of purity that contrasts with the lifestyle she's talking about. So in this hypothetical, Jesus doesn't have that status. It doesn't make any sense. It's totally illogical. Like, the premises don't follow to a conclusion logically at all.
I think it's like, for me, if religion and spirituality was more accessible. I'm not thinking about Jesus as an actual person. If the person Jesus was like physically sucking dick and drinking,
if religion were,
if this symbol was more accessible to me,
I follow that part of it.
Would be open to it.
If the symbol was a different thing altogether and no longer symbolized the thing that it symbolizes, then maybe I'd like that symbol, but it wouldn't be the same symbol, so there wouldn't be a contrast between them.
Meh.
It's like a self-defeating loop of logic. Like,
I don't agree.
If the thing was different, then it would be different. Yes. Like,
I think that symbols can evolve and metaphors can evolve and things can become more accessible to people when they're presented in different ways.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't have the significance that it has
for you. The real
world. People, no. Logically,
listening to
it literally wouldn't. In the hypothetical world where religion doesn't have the symbols of purity that it has, where it doesn't have the social expectations it has, then it wouldn't be a thing that contrasts with a sexy, horny, slutty lifestyle. It would just be that lifestyle already, and there wouldn't be a contrast, and there would be no meaning. You get no meaning from contrasting them together.
Do you think it's possible?
It would reveal nothing if they were the same thing. Do you understand? If these two things were the same thing, then we could get nothing from contrasting them.
Do you think that it's possible for concepts to evolve over time?
That's not what Kim Petras is talking about.
Well, how do we know what Kim Petras is talking about? It's just
because
a song.
She says it in the song.
Was.
I just read the lyrics. If this thing that I don't like was a thing I do like, then I would like it. Like, that's vacuous.
Wait, it's somehow making me like think of Trump, right? How he like pretends to be Christian religious to get like his following base, and then the Christians who are supposed to be like holier than thou, whatever, like great people, are falling for this person who's Christian yet fucking disgusting, womanizer, whatever. So it's like, oh yeah, like we love this person who's like somehow Jesus to us, and yet he's like us, so he's even better. I don't know. That's like my mind's going there with all this.
I can see how you could, like, I can see that. I don't think it's contained in the text of the Kim Petras song, but I can see how, like, I'm not saying, Peter, that you making these connections is wrong or dumb or bad or anything like that. I think you can jump off the Kim Petras song to this place if you want to. I don't see the connection is what I've been saying.
Yeah, that's totally
that's
fine.
why I can't follow you on this journey. Like, I haven't heard the song.
Yeah.
I've just now
Totally
read the
fine.
lyrics, and all I'm saying is like,
Super. Yeah.
that's cool that you get that out of it. You can feel free to like talk about that some more if you want to. I don't know how to participate.
It's a super catchy song. I think that when things are presented in pop culture by artists, it's up for interpretation. This, and I should also preference this by saying it wasn't a like I listened to the song, I had this idea, I wrote it down. It wasn't an epiphany, it wasn't a come to Jesus moment. I just find it interesting when religious figures and concepts are brought up in this superficial, frivolous, hypersexualized way because of the contradiction. I think it's interesting. We've seen it in pop culture for a long time. The Antichrist superstar Marilyn Manson, like a prayer with Madonna. I'm sure every single pop star, every single iconic pop star at some point tries to bring religion into what they're doing as a way to say, look at these two worlds, they don't match, but I'm going to do it. And then people have a reaction to it. Some people who are deeper religious find it really offensive. It's sacrilegious. You shouldn't do that. People like me who've been deeply impacted by pop culture find it as a bridge to a spirituality or a way to consider a different way of thinking. And maybe this superficial thing is actually more profound than I thought it was. And then people like you who are like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's stupid. Like it's Kim Petras. It's just a song. It doesn't really go anywhere. But how interesting that it's in the scope of pop culture and in the zeitgeist, and people are open to interpret it in a million different ways. I think it's
Well,
interesting.
if what you want to talk about isn't interesting when pop culture frivolity intersects with like religious imagery, that's something we can talk about. My point is only that I don't get there from the Kim Petras song personally, but we can talk about it separately as a thing. I mean, what I see that she's done.
You don't think that Kim Petras singing about Jesus is religious and pop culture coming together in the way I just described?
No, it clearly is. That's what I just said. I said that clearly is that on the surface.
Hello,
There's no
we're talking about
lyrical
the same
content.
thing.
We're not. No, we're not. You said something earlier
Am
about
I missing
how,
something? Am I missing something here?
Well,
I don't get it.
I do
I
think
feel-
there's like two different things, because I think, Peter, you were confusing me again, where you it seemed like you were saying that, oh, it's a good thing if famous people sing about or talk about their spiritual thoughts or beliefs, and then the fans can make their interpretation. I might disagree with that just because of where I am right now, where I'm like, I don't know, if I have a child, I don't want them to get swooped up. If like, I want them to be more scientific minded and not get swooped up into these like magical thoughts, or like, I don't know, be swayed in that way. Like, I feel like it overcame most of my life being this weird new age stuff that I now like completely regret. Like, I don't want like our future children get swept up in that just because some crazy rock star like believes in Jesus or has this like spiritual moment, and that's kind of like hypnotizing my child. So I think that they should leave their beliefs out of it.
That's what I was just going to ask. So you think that like if you are in the public sphere and if you're a celebrity or a politician or an influencer or whatever, your personal preference would be for folks not to talk about spirituality because you think that it's perhaps, what's the word? Irresponsible to talk about something like that because it projects a certain idea and not everybody consuming it will be able to think critically. And your journey as an example, it took you down a path that you were like, fuck this was not helpful. I don't need another person telling me to be spiritual because there is no God and it's dangerous, essentially, is what you think. Yeah. Okay. And Derek, you're feeling like what I was saying and what you were saying were two completely different things. I was saying, well, you tell me what you think.
Well, what I understood that you to be saying, and if I've misunderstood, you can correct me, but it seemed at first like what you were saying was does Kim Petras singing this song reveal that through pop culture we can recontextualize religion and become religious if we see religion as a different thing than what it is and has been historically? And I was like, yeah, but that's a vacuous statement, because if a thing that we don't like becomes a thing we do like, then we like that thing. Like, yeah, that doesn't tell us anything about that thing or about the thing that supposedly transformed it. It has no transformative properties. And then what you said after that, when you, I think, disagreed with what you were hearing from me, was, do you think Kim Kim Petras is talking about religion in a pop song. And like, yes, obviously she's doing that, but that doesn't mean it has the capacity to transform the things she's talking about. All she's doing is saying, if religion were like sucking dick and crowd surfing, then I would like religion. Like,
So
yeah,
you're
yes,
like,
okay.
basically, if I understand you
That doesn't
correctly,
tell us
it's
anything about religion or about pop. It's a hypothetical.
if
Sorry, go ahead.
Jesus, what Jesus and religion is, and what we know it to be, is like this. And I'm going to use purity, because Jesus is like
Yeah.
purity, the commandments, following a certain kind of lifestyle. If Jesus wasn't that, and he was like us, partying all the time and being a slut, then it wouldn't be Jesus. So it kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, I don't like sports. I think it's stupid. I would never want to partake in it. It's this stupid thing. But then if I said, but if football was like Drag Race, and instead of playing football, they were wearing wigs, and instead of playing a sport, they were lip syncing, then maybe I would like it. But you're saying, yeah, but then it wouldn't be that thing. So
Exactly.
there's no point. Got it.
Exactly. And
Got
then there
it.
would be no contrast between Drag Race and football. And there would be no value in me saying, well, hypothetically, I could like football if it wasn't football at all. That's like, no, I
You
couldn't
know
then. I
why?
couldn't
You
like
know
football
why?
then.
You know why it's so triggering for me is because I think that my mind really does, when I see these things in pop culture, the bridge for me is so clear. And the way I personally interpret this is like, oh my God, how amazing. Kim Petras fans could potentially take this and interpret it and maybe open up to the idea of spirituality. And I know that is a very small, like, there's not many people I've encountered that are like, yeah, I 100% get that. I 100% see it. And so, yeah, I am very interested in the way religion and pop culture work together, and how it changes the way that we experience it. And I think a more articulate way of me saying why I get excited is, what are the effects? How can you do that in a creative and smart way so that your message is being really clear, where we can all agree that by watching this music video and hearing this song, Kim Petras, I'm not saying this song, but if it was done right, we could all be like, oh, they're asking us to question our spirituality. They're asking us to question what it means to be religious. But if it's not very clear, then it's just another song and it's Jesus sucking dick, and who really cares? Um, it kind of gets lost. It's very, very light, and it's probably not persuading anybody to be spiritual or not,
The
ultimately.
success of a song like a prayer, for example, just because I can't think of another song right now that like I think uses symbolism correctly when it comes to religion. The success is that it uses the qualities of worship and religion to compare it to the feelings of love and devotion, like an obsession with a person, right? Or with a sexual experience or whatever she's talking about. It's open to interpretation, but it uses the existing qualities of religion that everyone understands those to be from a shared cultural perspective to compare it with something else. Whereas Kim Petras is just saying, if these two different things were the same thing,
Yeah.
then they would be the same thing. It doesn't mean anything, right?
Oh my
So
God, I
that's how
wish Kim
metaphor
could
works.
come on the show. Yeah.
That's what metaphor is. When you make a link between when you point out the potential for an existing link to be noticed between two things that are different, right? Or that are similar in ways you're pointing out that people might not have
Mhm.
understood before or realized.
That 23 minutes just went by so fucking fast. Holy moly.
Yeah, we
Did not
hardly
think.
ever come to blows. So
But you know what?
yeah,
It's because I think, like, you and I at a core, whatever, we don't need to get into it. I think
no, we can.
well, I just think that, I mean, from knowing you closely for the past year or so, when we've been like, since the show's been up, well, I think it's been like 2 years now. Um, like, when we are aligned, it's like yes, and when we are not, it's like so different. Like, I think the first time we had a heated thing in the DMs was like, whether anything could be spiritual. Remember that one? And you're like,
Yeah.
no, nothing can be. I don't know. We don't need to go back there. But the reason why I get so heated is because I feel so strongly that there is a link between pop culture and spirituality. And I think communicating that clearly to somebody like you, who's very logic based and wants to, like, black and white, things are the way they are for a reason,
No, that's
It
not.
can
I don't want you to mischaracterize me. That's not true. That's not how I feel. This is a much more nuanced position than just religion can be spiritual or not spiritual. That's not at all how I feel. And I have not said that like you can't intersect those two things. I've said you have to do it with more than just if two different things were similar, then they'd be similar. Pop culture and spirituality can coexist and can have a relationship. I'm just saying you have to point out the ways in which they do have that relationship to talk about it. And if I didn't think that, then I wouldn't be able to participate in the show at all.
Yeah, that's yeah, b- exactly. When I communicate those ideas to you, I need to be very articulate and clear about what I'm referencing. Because to me, it's a feeling, right? It's like, what do you mean? You don't see this? Like she said, Jesus. Hello, she's a pop star who said Jesus. That's obviously a link to spirituality. That's my brain. That's what I see. That's what I feel. That's what I
Well,
interpret.
I agree with
But
you that that's a link to spirituality. Kim Petras in her song is a pop culture icon, I guess, who has made a link to Jesus, but that's as deep as it goes. There's nothing more we can pull out of it. It's as surface as she mentioned Jesus. That's all that's happening.
Yeah, I agree
what
with Derek and also with you, Peter, but in a way where pop culture can redefine how we might feel spiritually within ourselves, right? So I love this song. It says nothing about Jesus or spirituality. I'm just listening to like some other song and I'm getting the feels and I'm dancing. And that's a spiritual moment for me where someone singing about Jesus is different. That's not, pop culture and spirituality to me. That is someone trying to shove Jesus down my throat. And maybe not this song in particular, maybe more Christian rock, or when we don't know something's Christian rock and it's on radio stations and you're like, what's going on? So I think there are two different things. So yes, with you that things can be spiritual experiences, but in a redefining way.
Yeah, the difference between like referencing religious or spiritual metaphors or icons that everybody can agree belong to that world, and also having a spiritual experience separate from that because of the person that you are and the environment you're in and the circumstances or whatever. And sometimes those two mix. Maybe somebody like me listens to If Jesus Was a Rock Star and also has a spiritual experience, and I can say, well, that the way that she talked about it sparked something in me and it had a profound effect. Sure. And in that situation, a person can talk about their personal experience and be like, this is what happened to me. But that doesn't mean that it's a spiritual hub for the masses. It doesn't mean that what's Kim Petras or that singer is putting out is going to have the same effect on everything. And also, this is something both of you and I have talked about on the show before, is the difference between what happens inside of a person and how they describe that to the world versus a blanket statement of this is spiritual, this is spirituality.
Yeah, and like it, if the way I interpreted the sort of initial topic or question for me was along the lines of isn't it interesting that Kim Petras is mentioning Jesus? And my answer to that is no. But if the question instead was is it interesting that religion makes its way into pop culture so frequently, and what are the effects of that, and how is it being done? How
Mm-hmm.
are recording artists, how are they making that reference, how are they building that connection? That is
Yeah.
interesting to me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to me to talk about the fact that, in my opinion, Kim Petras is not making an interesting comment on religion, right? That's the interesting thing to me.
And why?
Anyway.
Like, what's
Well,
what's the point? Not for you.
because I
Why is
like
that your
media
opinion?
analysis.
No,
Sorry, go
no,
ahead.
I know. Not why is that interesting to you? Along with, isn't it interesting that this pops up in pop culture? What does it mean? Is why? Why are these people doing it? Because you brought up Madonna as a shock value artist, like people doing it as a way to like become somebody and create art that people are talking about versus, I mean, I don't know. Madonna did the fucking Ray of Light album where she actually was having a spiritual experience and she was trying to convey that through her music. Very different. Is that different than, here's a question, is that different? Madonna recording an album while she's having a spiritual experience, calling it Ray of Light and sharing it with her fans and really trying to convey that spirituality in a pop sensibility versus Marilyn Manson dressing up the way that he used to dress up and calling himself the Antichrist superstar and ripping up a Bible and burning shit and using religion very strongly in his messaging and his branding. But as far as I know, was not actually spiritual, was more of like a fuck you to religion. You know what I mean? The difference between intent and shock, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Sure, that's totally interesting. So the questions there that are interesting to me are how is Madonna within the context of the Ray of Light album, and maybe whatever cultural context, whatever was going on for her at the time that we can glean from interviews or public, statements, how is she constructing spirituality in the context of Ray of Light versus how is Marilyn Manson constructing, communicating about religion in his artistic output, whatever that may be. Jesus Christ Superstar or whatever the fuck you said. That's a different thing, isn't it? Antichrist mega
Antichrist superstar.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the question. So we might say, oh, like Madonna is using bright melodies and she's wearing jean jackets, which is an earthy, whatever. And we might say Marilyn Manson is wearing gothic makeup, right? And so these are the ways in which it's interesting for me to discuss how are they both constructing and talking about the same topic differently.
Yeah. That is interesting. I love that. You know what I would, you know what else I would love to do is like, I've thought about this before, but it's too big of a project, is like going back in history, pop culture history, and getting clips together of celebrities thanking God in their award show speeches or referencing God in their interviews, because this is I think what was embedded to me, and this kind of goes back to what you say, Jess, of being young and not being able to be a critical thinker. Like growing up in Calgary, listening to country music, lots of talk about Jesus, lots of talk about angels, lots of talk about God. Every time somebody wins an award, they're thanking God. So from a very young age, I'm like, oh, success, God, success, God. If you're on TV, you're talking about God. If you're on the radio, you're singing about God. And it really paired those two together. And to seeing how that has evolved over the decades. Like, I'm sure if we go back decades and decades, it was probably more religious centric. Whereas these days, I mean, I haven't watched the MTV Awards in a long time, so I don't know. But are artists still thanking God when they win awards, or is that kind of gone away? I haven't heard a lot of God in recent songs. Well, except for the Jesus thing, but that's not God. The way that religion has been embedded with pop culture and the evolution of, I guess, its absence, because I don't think it's getting higher. Like, I definitely don't feel like there's more God references than there was like two decades ago. If anything, it's more about like manifesting, high vibes, that kind of thing. Jess's favorite.
Yeah, I almost throw up more when people say the word manifest. With all this talk, I have to say that I still absolutely love Christmas music, and that's just from nostalgia. And I cannot wait to listen to Christmas music about Jesus in a manger.
You don't have to wait. You can start now.
And annoy my husband so much. It is interesting re-listening to it now as an adult. And it's like, oh, wait. But I still like it. I like any nostalgia. I'm getting off topic, but
no, that's good. I think we needed a bridge. Yeah, so
sure.
Move on. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Derek, there was something you wanted to bring up last week that we didn't get to. So why don't you take it away?
Yes. Well, as I understand it, a actor named Kit Connors. Oh God, I had it open in a window and now it's closed. Kit Connors is an actor on a show called HeartStoppers, as I understand it. Not a show that I've seen, not a person I've heard about. Kit Connor, no Connors, just Connor, one Connor, who I guess he plays a gay character or a bisexual character on this TV show or something, and fans on Twitter, because it's a hell world, started the queer baiting discourse, started calling saying this person was queer baiting for being, as they perceived, a straight person playing a gay character. And that already is where I'm starting to have a problem with this whole thing. So anyway, he was basically bullied to come out of the closet and say, actually, I'm bisexual. So stop saying I'm queer baiting by playing someone who's, interested in men on this TV show, because like in real life, I am potentially. And I guess people are feeling like he was bullied to come out of the closet, and that's really wrong and inappropriate and whatever. I don't even get that far. I get as far as like, it's not queer baiting just to play gay characters or characters that are different from your sexuality. That's not what queer baiting means, and it never has been. Queer baiting is when media figures outside of the context of a fake environment, TV, movies, where they're playing a character outside of that environment, they sort of flirt with and never confirm or deny queerness and cultivate that fan base without ever having to take on the risk of associating themselves, of saying they're queer, and taking on the potential risks and hatred and loss of fans and whatever sponsorships, risks associated with actually being openly queer, violence, whatever, right? So that's queer baiting. It's never been when a straight person plays gay. Now, separately, I have a problem with when straight people play queer and get accolades for it, but queer people are not cast at all to play themselves, right? That's a different problem. And so there's a real confusion and conflation of these things among annoying Gen Z woke scolds apparently on Twitter, who don't understand that historically there's one problem, and that problem is it's not that queer people can't be played by straight people. That is not the problem. The problem is only because that happens more often than queer people get to play themselves. And straight people are lauded for it and called brave, whereas queer people are told you can never work in this town again. That actor who stars in Bros, the love interest, was up for Superman and then told Superman can't be a gay guy. He can't be played by a gay guy, even though that's a character. It's a fictional character. The character would have been straight, just played by an actor who happens to be gay. So this still happens, right? This is still a problem. It's still a problem that queer people can't play themselves. They can't play straight people. They can't get cast at all, while straight people can play queer people. That's a problem. But it's not queer baiting. So this kid playing a queer person, even if they were straight, is not the same thing as queer baiting. So that's where I have a problem with it already. Anyway, it's kind of my
Was
whole
there
spiel.
conversation about that on Twitter? Like, obviously, people were assuming that because this person hadn't publicly declared their sexuality, they were assuming that they were straight. I actually did watch the show. It was super cute. Basically, a teenage love story. And the character is, I just looked it up, and it is the actor. He's basically like the jock, and then he meets the out gay character, and then they kind of fall in love, and then Kit, the actor you're talking about, is confused. Am I bi? Am I straight? Am I gay? And I think by the end of the show he's bi, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm curious, when you were seeing this discourse online, was there anybody who was sort of like sticking up for him and being like, this isn't queer baiting, you guys have it wrong? Or was it just the pressure of like, you need to come out, otherwise it's queer baiting, that you saw?
Yeah, I don't think the sequence of events was kind of like explosion of accusations of queer baiting, that pressure building and building on this poor actor until they finally said, are you happy now? Like, I'm bi, and you just forced a teenage queer kid to come out of the closet on a public world stage. Happy now? So I don't think there was really a moment where someone was saying, hey, leave him alone. But after the fact now, people, of course, are coming out and saying, like, it was really inappropriate of you to force this teenager to, like, label themselves as queer on a world stage by bullying them and assuming what they were, right? And yeah, so I'm just pointing out that the problem is the problem is not even making an assumption about someone. The problem is not having a problem with straight people playing queer. You can have a problem with that, but you have to understand that, like, that in and of itself is not the actors doing that are not in and of themselves the problem. It is not. There's nothing actually wrong with straight actors playing queer or with queer actors playing straight. None of that is the problem. The problem is a broader context in which queer people don't get cast at all. So the problem is that Gen Z doesn't understand the nuance and conflates these things. I think the message for Gen Z, because they're unable to process complex things, is just that queer people can never be played by straights, right?
I
That's
mean,
the
this
understanding they have of it.
this is also like, yeah, I mean, it's the militant social justice views, like the way that if it's not done in a way that these people deem appropriate, then it's brushed off as being queer baiting, and there isn't nuanced conversations about, like you said, what the bigger problem is. This happens so often online, and this is why people are get so cringed by these conversations, because the impression is, You take the very small, very loud, very angry group of people who are saying this is queer baiting, forcing this poor kid to come out. And they interpret that as like what queer people are, what social justice warriors are. This is what a liberal movement is. It's not letting straight people play gay and not letting like it's tiring, it's exhausting, and this kind of goes into the conversation around social media in general. Is like people feeling like they are owed somebody else's truth or somebody else's personal story because they're an actor, because they're in the media. It's becoming so toxic and so nasty. Like I can't even imagine being a teenager and having that pressure to come out. That journey of self-discovery is really dictates how you're going to be as a queer adult. Like, were you supported and loved, and could you take your time, and were you able to come to this conclusion by yourself and, come out when it made sense to you? Or were you bullied into doing it? Did your parents force you, or did they tell you you could never come out? Did you come out to one person and they said don't tell anyone? Like, all of these things really dictate the tone of how you could potentially live your life as a queer adult. So I wish there was more privacy and autonomy in queer people in the media when it came to coming out and things like that.
Right. Did he feel bullied on both sides? Like bullied in one way that like, okay, I need to say something and label myself because people are wondering. And then bullied on the other side where people are like, oh, like we're social justice warriors, like we have your back, like just go ahead and like say something. And then he felt again bullied on both sides, like he had to now label himself maybe prematurely. Again, are people, I don't know, I remember like years ago it's like I don't want to be a label, and now it's like I need my label.
Yeah.
And again, saying it prematurely, where, I wonder if like when I was younger and I made out with my girlfriend when I was like 20 or something a couple times, would I have been like, wow, I need to tell people that I'm like bi now? Or is that just like an experience?
If you were in the
and
public
I'm like,
sphere,
I know I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, if you were in the public sphere, probably yes, you would. If that was happening today, and you were 20 and you were a celebrity and you were making out with a girl, then you would either be called queer baiting or you would have to come out, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
But then it's also different for men, I feel like, because girls can make out and it's just like fine. And then like guys need to like really define themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's just what it feels like.
No, that sounds right.
That.
I think it seems like the same group of people, the same Gen Z Twitter woke schools, who are on the one hand like obsessed with signaling that anyone can be anything and sexuality can be fluid, are also the same people who forced this person to come up with a label in order to shut them up, right? In order to stop them being accused, to stop accusing them of something bad, queer baiting. Yeah, it seems like very, I don't know, it's very confused. It's just, yeah. And there was also a comparison. Someone was making comparison. Oh yeah, this was bad. It was just like the Harry Styles discourse when people are labeling him as queer baiting, and it's like, no. Those are different things. He is queer baiting because he's out in his whole cultural oeuvre. His whole persona is centered around cultivating this audience, but never confirming or denying. That is a different thing than just playing a character and making no other gestures towards and not intentionally creating thirst within gays or whatever the fuck the accusation is. Different thing altogether. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. It's not really true that your sexuality can just change, right? If sexuality isn't really fluid, that is to say you can have a sexuality which is flexible. Your sexuality can be, I am flexible towards men, women, pansexual, trans people, non-binary, whatever. But you can't change it from one to the other. And if you could, conversion therapy wouldn't be illegal, right? Conversion therapy doesn't mean a specific set of abusive things. It means any therapy which is designed to convert your sexuality, because that is inherently impossible and therefore abusive, right? Conversion therapy isn't one set of things. It's that they haven't outlawed that. They've outlawed the entire concept of a therapy designed to change your sexuality, right? So anyway, yeah. I guess I'm off on a tangent here, but that was one of the arguments I saw. It was like,
Yeah.
well, Harry Styles can be. You shouldn't label anyone because he could be, and this kid, and it's the same thing with Kit Connor, and it's not the same. No, 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 it's not the same. You have a sexuality. If it was possible to change that, then it would be possible to develop therapeutic modalities that aren't abusive, right?
And the reason why Harry Styles is problematic in some people's eyes is because he is constantly taking on the label of queer and having the rainbow flags and doing his gender fluid dressing without actually stating what he is, and therefore he's benefiting from the culture without the lived experience and literally making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of being this icon while also being elusive to whether or not that's his actual experience. Um,
Yeah.
and the person who's playing an actor, it's different because it's a script, it's not real life. It's just a story that we're being told. It's fictional versus somebody who is actually appropriating queer culture.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't think I mean, there, as far as I know, Harry Styles hasn't come out in any way. I did just watch his movie
No.
where there's like 15 gay sex scenes.
Which movie?
Pretty hot. The Policeman. He plays a gay guy, and yeah, lots. You see him naked, and it's full on gay sex scenes like that. Liked watching it. I don't know if he's commented on sexuality yet, though.
Well, that was the
He
movie
also,
that he made the comment about. There's too many scenes of guys just going at it, and it removes the tenderness from it. Right. That was the like totally sort of homophobic
yeah.
comment he made.
And it's funny because we watched another movie of his last night, Don't Worry, Darling, and he is playing a straight guy in this one, and he goes down on his girlfriend a bunch of times. So it feels like it's both movies. I feel like hypersexualized characters for him, but on two different ends of the spectrum. Thought it was interesting.
I guess that's something people want to see.
Yeah, I mean, there was that rumor that Justin Bieber, like years and years ago, when he was up and coming, not up and coming. He was already like a full superstar. They had offered him a movie where he played a pop star or something. I don't fucking know, but one of the scenes had him kissing or hooking up with a male backup dancer, and he was like, no. So that has evolved a lot. I mean, in the scope of when Justin Bieber was like the thing to now that Harry Styles is the thing. What is that? 10 years. And now Harry Styles is like full on gay sex in movies.
Well, maybe they just don't both want the same thing, right?
This, I just wanted to read this quote before we get off the topic of social media, because Jess, you sent this to us before we started. It's an article from The Atlantic. I didn't read the full article, just the caption on Instagram. The age of social media might end soon, but it never should have begun. So I guess it's a critical article about social media, I'm assuming. But one of the lines that I liked was, all at once, billions of people saw themselves as celebrities, pundits, and tastemakers. And it sort of goes on to say that every single person on social media just feels like either they deserve an audience or they have the right to criticize somebody else because they're online. And it just opened this can of worms for humanity, where it started as a social network where we could like connect with people. And then it became social media at some point, which was basically the commercialization of it. I want to read this and I want to talk about it next week, because you all know I have like mostly a hate relationship with social media. I just don't see the point. I see the point in promoting the podcast. I love talking with you. I love our show. I get excited when I post something that people like. But in 20 years, when we look back at the era of social media, what are we going to know? What is the data going to say of how it's affected us? What is the mental health effects? What has it done to our brain? Like fucking TikTok. The most popular TikTok videos are like between 12 and 20 seconds or something like that. And most people, over 50% of TikTok users, watch videos at double speed. So imagine these fucking 12-year-olds scrolling through Twitter, TikTok, consuming these videos that are going so fucking fast, and they're looking through hundreds of them for hours and hours a day. Like, what is that doing to a developing brain? And how is that going to translate to like going to be an adult and like having to do a job for 5 hours a day or 8 hours or whatever the fucking workforce ends up being? What do you both think about like 20 years when we're able to look back at social media in retrospect? What do you think the takeaways will be? What do you think the effects are going to be on our age? So like millennials, but also the younger generation.
Yeah, I need to
Younger.
fully read this article as well. I don't know if we just want to like wait on that question, because I want to read the article. And I've been telling you both about another podcast I listen to, and they almost weekly dive into the potential damaging effects on teenage girls, like 11 to 13, and what social media is doing to them. And I definitely want to finish that episode as well and get both of yours thoughts on that. So yeah, I just think this is a bigger topic. And I don't know what it's gonna evolve in.
Well, what about
I was
you
just talking to my
personally?
husband about that.
What about you personally? What has the effect of social media been on you? Like, we're the same age, so we started with Facebook in 2007 and moved to Instagram. Like, has your relationship with social media affected you positively or negatively, or has it been neutral?
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this before, but it's a little bit of both because again, I get to meet people like the both of you. I feel like I have like relationships and friendships with people that I've never met before. And sometimes I did actually get to meet people in person when I was still living in New York. So it was super positive there. Negative on the effects that I think we can all agree on is all of a sudden like, whoa, I didn't even know I picked up my phone and I'm just like
Yeah.
blindly like staring, scrolling. What am I even looking at? Oh my God, an hour went by. And just for me, Instagram, obviously, I saw it from, wow, I see all of my friends post to now I have to search for my friends. And right
Yeah.
now, it just seems like a go to for me to get happy watching cat videos or to purchase something because it's really the only vehicle I use to find new brands and buy things, is what Instagram is for me now.
What about you,
I don't know if
Derek?
Derek had anything.
Well, I'm no. I mean, we have talked about this before, and I think that you know, prognosticating about the negative outcomes on people's personalities and brains from social media is pretty overblown by like boomers who don't really get social media largely. But I think we've also talked about, it's a lonely time. And part of that is to do with, I mean, the state of the world in general. But like, there are some studies showing that social media, constantly scrolling and feeling left out of, people's curated perfect versions of their lives or whatever, and comparing yourselves to them can make you lonely and sad. So there's some evidence for that, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think, it's a complex thing that can happen, and sometimes I notice it happening to me, but I also use it to have positive connections with people and to improve my life in some ways. It does
Yeah.
sometimes can make me happy. It gives me the dopamine or whatever of getting some attention on a picture or something, and it's not all bad. I don't know.
Yeah, the person who wrote that article, the first thing I did was look up how old they were, and they're 45. But I
Yeah.
do think age matters when you're talking about social media, because it's just going to be a different perspective. Um, so yeah, I feel like good and bad. Like, just to echo what both of you said, met like have connected with people on social media in positive ways. Have been able to use it as a creative outlet. Also, can make me feel really insecure and like I'm screaming into the fucking void of space sometimes. But to be honest, sometimes my day job makes me feel like that because I have to do a lot of calling. And when people don't answer my calls, I feel the same way as when I post and I don't get a lot of attention. So I feel like, yeah, you have to be just mindful of consumption, just like sugar, just like alcohol, just like drugs. Like, it's just, I feel like social media is what you make of it for now. TikTok does seem like a new beast, to be honest. It is very stimulating. And I'm curious. Yeah, I'm just curious how it's going to evolve. I can't imagine what would come after TikTok. Because you like, have you both been scrolling on it at all? I know not
Yeah,
really. Jess,
I
you're
have
trying
been
to get
trying
into
to.
it, and Derek, no.
No.
Yeah, it's wild.
Isn't it like true though that like every generation has been like, hey, the kids after us are dumb and
Yes.
stupid and
Mm-hmm.
disrespectful and self-absorbed? Like, isn't that just kids? Like, I don't know.
Oh
I think
yeah.
about I
And,
think
and
about
also
like
like the parents saying the world is so much worse. Yeah, that's common. The
yeah,
next
so I
generation
mean
is
what I
fucked.
think
Yeah.
about like there's that it's like a meme or something of um people just everyone's on the subway just staring at their phones and isn't that self-absorbed and shouldn't you look at the world around you? But under that meme like there's a picture of people in the 1950s just all staring at a newspaper. Like so it's always
Same
been
thing.
like that, you know?
Yeah.
And having kids always just been always kind of dumbasses. Like aren't they just dipshits? Isn't that just the way they are? Like and I also
Yeah.
think there are some kids who still read and go to ballet or whatever. Like I think like I think they still do that stuff
Hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I
and
think
play
the kids
sports.
like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and are considerate and are concerned about the environment and whatever we consider virtues to be now.
You know what? I feel like out of all the episodes we've ever done, this one has made me the most tired. It started off with a bang,
Wow.
and I need more coffee now.
Yeah, fair.
Anything else you guys want to throw into the fire?
No, to appreciate us being able to talk and be honest and still like love and respect each other.
I wish we could like be in the same room and like pass the talking stick around. You know how they do that? I'm so jealous of the podcasters that I see online who like have a studio and like everybody sits on a couch and there's like 15 cameras in the room and they're all getting filmed. Oh my God, can you imagine we were all in the same room and we could like wake up at the same time, have coffee together, go to the set, turn on the lights, turn on the camera, lights, camera, action, turn on the live screen, talk to the fans. We each get our own mic.
That'd be so fun. Well, if you do want to simulate a talking stick, that's what this is for.
Oh my
See?
God.
You can put
Yeah,
your
I was
hand up.
often wondering if I should raise my hand at points.
I mean,
Oh
we
yeah,
can
this
try
is
that if
good. This is
yeah,
good. This is good.
we can try that so there's less like crosstalk. And
I
that
don't think there's a
someone
lot of
doesn't get
yeah.
steamrolled. So, I mean, I often feel as if Jess is just kind of like sitting there, like, when's it going to be my turn?
Me,
They're
me,
really
me.
they're really going
I
off.
was trying to raise my hand this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
She's the
could try
moderator.
that. And then obviously Peter is the host, just like call on us if you see our hand raise.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think it gets too unruly, like
No, I don't think so either. But I do. I
yeah.
mean, I'm aware that I can dominate, so I want to be a little mindful of that sometimes.
By that do you mean you're a dom top?
Yeah, I mean, that's
So
the
so is
vibe. Yeah.
Jess.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Oh my God. Okay. Thank you for another amazing week. And thank you to the billions of ascended viruses across the world. Remember that. The fans are called viruses. Never forget.
Mm, that's
Until
because
next week.
we're gonna go viral. We have a really big viral load.
Okay, that's it. That's it. We're done. We're done here.